Well, hello, everybody, and thank you so much for being here for another episode of Women Like Me Stories in Business. I am just so pleased today to have one of our newest authors with us today, Melodie Dewsbury. Now, this lady has quite the story to tell, and I'm going to let her tell us the story. But I'm just going to tell you the book she was in, where you can find her, and what her title is. So this is the newest Women Like Me book. It came out about a month ago, and it was #1 in 5 different categories, which is amazing. And then in my favorite category, personal transformation, we got to #2. That's a really hard category to get, but I was just so pleased and I was so excited for everybody. So where you can find Melodie is in chapter 10, and her title is this: Finding Strength Through Life's Challenges, How an Unexpected Journey Led to Resilience, Empowerment, and a New Me. So Melodie, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And why don't we start off by you just telling us about yourself?
Thanks so much for having me. It was funny. I was just thinking, oh, I should grab my book and have it, but I remembered I gave my copy away. So I guess I can't use that as a prop, but yeah, tell you a little bit about myself. So I am a dog mom. You can see my pup behind me here,
Oh,
working hard. He sits with me here every day. I work from home. I'm a marketing manager for a business consulting agency in the Lower Mainland. And oh gosh, where do I start? Um, so I am divorced. I am in a new relationship with someone who we've been together for a few years now. And I live with him and his stepson as well. So I get to be stepmom.
oh, nice.
Yeah, and in my spare time, I love to make stuff. If you can see all my craft shelves
Oh,
here. I try to hide them for work, but I cannot hide them completely. So
yeah.
just part of who I am. I love plants, as you can tell. So I'm an avid gardener and I love paddleboarding.
Oh,
Yes.
perfect. Well, you live in the right area to be able to do paddle boarding.
Yes, yeah. We moved here just about a year ago, and there are so many great little lakes around. I have not explored them all yet, but I really, really am hoping to this summer.
Oh, perfect. Well, thank you for
Mhm.
that, Melodie. It's yeah, we Melodie and I live somewhat close to one another, and we're surrounded by mountains and forests and beautiful lakes everywhere. So if you're a paddle boarder, you live in the right spot. That's for sure. So,
Definitely.
Melodie, let's just jump in. I have a question for you. I'm just, can you tell our audience a little bit about what led you to write this story?
It's a good question. So I the whole story of my divorce and what happened, like as it was happening, so many crazy things were taking place that I was telling people I need to write this down because I'm like people will not believe me when I'm telling these things. And I didn't share a lot of that in this chapter. But I had started writing like as soon as it happened. And I think within a year after the separation, um, I had I had several chapters about what had gone on during this whole time, which I think I don't look back on very often. But I think it's so good to have that story there and to have that written down. And so I had wanted to write that whole story. I wasn't sure how to do it. I wasn't sure if it should be, a fictional story or if it should be a self-help book or if it should just be a memoir. I didn't know where to go with it. And I met you at the women's show in Chilliwack I think it was the West Coast Women's Show.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I just happened to, see your booth and I was like, oh, I think it was actually the women who were from Africa that wrote stories. That was the book that caught my eye. And I
Yes.
wanted to know more about that. And then you and I started talking and I was like, well, I got a story for you. And that's basically
Yeah,
how it started.
yeah.
So it was a really great first, dip your toe in the water into writing a book. And I do love to write. So it was a great experience.
Good. And so when you started writing, when you were going through this, which would have been a very traumatic event leading up to your divorce, why did you start to write it? Like, what was your goal? Were you just trying to get some anger out? Were you trying to remember? Were you trying to just like, what was the purpose? Why write it out? What was the purpose of that?
I remember, so after the separation, I moved back to my parents' house for a couple months. And I remember going to London Drugs and picking up a few books, right? This was my self-care era for like a couple months. It was summer. I was like, I'm just gonna, live my best life. I'm gonna grab all the books and sit in the backyard and read. And I grabbed one. And I think it was called A Beautiful, Terrible Thing or something like that. And it was about a woman who found out that her husband had an affair and um, that he was, going back and forth and telling her one thing and they were getting back together and then she got pregnant and all these things. And it was it was so like enthralling. And I remember reading it in like a day and a half. And that book, I was like, oh my goodness, this woman is telling my story.
Mm.
This has been so therapeutic to read this book specifically, even though it was fiction. I think a lot of it was based on true story. Um, that I found so much comfort in that. I was like, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write a book so that other people later on in life, whenever I get it done, will read that and go, oh, I'm not alone. This happened to me too.
Yeah.
I'm not crazy. And, can gain some kind of like, yeah, just some comfort or feel like, you know what, she did this to get over this and now she's here and I can do that too. And that was the entire reason for writing it.
I love that, Melody, because that's the purpose of the Women Like Me books.
Yeah.
It's about helping ourselves, but also helping people who read our stories.
Yeah.
And look what happened when you read that story. So thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. In your story, you talk a lot about women and relationships with women and how women, if it wasn't for the women in your life, you may not have gotten through it. So I want to just start with, when you told some trusted women in your life what was happening, because I think a lot of times what happens to us if we go through a traumatic experience, especially what something you went through, maybe we feel shame about what's happening. We might feel guilt, we don't want to talk about it, we prefer just to put the blinders on, maybe just
Yeah.
in terms of not sharing it with others. But you did the opposite.
Yep.
You reached out, and I think that that's brave, and because it's hard to talk about our private lives, especially when they're not going as well as we'd like. So can you tell me a little bit about what happened when you reached out to your girlfriends? And I think it was it a grandma and your mom? Do you want to tell us a little bit about that, how that happened? And
Yeah. And just to touch on what you just said, I don't think I think there is a lot of stigma around trauma, around things that are just out of our control and people don't want to talk about them. And so I don't know when this started, but I did start talking about some things like a few years earlier. I have like an invisible illness in my ear. So, sometimes I'm in pain and people don't know, right? And so I had to start telling people that.
mm,
And
mm,
I've I found personally there was a lot of it was very therapeutic to share that with people. And then so, you're not just like struggling alone. What happened when I told people, not just family, but like um, so my workplace, so I was a teacher at the time and I'd been there for I think if several years at that point, I'm not sure. And we were really a close-knit family. Like I was friends with everybody, right? And a lot of those teachers also knew my ex-husband. And so when something big like this happens and I take a few days off work because I'm like, I don't know what's going on, right? People are asking questions.
yeah.
As soon as I started to say, because I was so ashamed that someone did not find value in me enough to stay married to me. That was the whole thing.
Mm,
And I was ashamed at that at first. And then I started to tell people. And I had teachers come into my room after school and say, I'm going through the exact same thing, but I didn't tell anybody. I had 3 teachers come to me within a week.
Wow.
One was male and 2 other females. And they were like, so yeah, I get you. Right. And that just to have that immediate community was amazing. But I had mentors at the school and, I was a younger teacher. And so I really felt like those mentors and friends just like took me under their wing.
Oh,
And, like, I mean, I remember secret, like quiet lunches where I'm just like crying in the book room in the back of the library, like that's so closed off with my girlfriend. And and I remember also like my other mentor, like, she'd come over on a Saturday and she'd bring me a new mug, which I still have. And it was like, you're a woman, you can do it. Like every successful woman, behind every successful woman is herself. That was the mug that she gave me. Like those kinds of messages were constantly being given to me by the women that I worked with. And especially coming from people who knew him, and you'd think there would maybe be a little bit of I don't want to get involved, right? No,
right.
we were 100%. Even women that had known him for years and years, they were like, I got you, right? Like we stand behind you. That is awful what happened. And it was just so, it was like family. It was like everyone just like hugged me, big hug,
Oh,
and it was so healing. So that was, I think, the catalyst, because after I quit teaching, I started a business and I started this Facebook group and I started doing go lives like like weekly. And I was sharing all over the place. I was telling everyone my story. And I started because of that, because I told that in the school, and that was so well received and people found it helpful as well. So I'm like, I'm going to do this on a larger scale. So I had a few thousand people in this group. And I had people messaging me every single time I mentioned this story, or I said, hey, I'm going through this right now, I'm struggling, right? Like you
yeah.
think when you're someone online and people are looking up to you, you have to have it all together. No, I'm like super vulnerable and
Yeah.
everywhere. And
Yeah.
every time I said, hey, this is happening, someone reached out and they said, I needed to hear that. I am going through this right now. That was so helpful. Like you literally just spoke to me. So
Wow.
yeah, I kind of went on a tangent there, but
No, 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 that's beautiful. I'm glad that you shared all of that. And it just really as you were talking, I thought, there's so many people that they keep their head down and they're just don't
yeah,
off the radar because they're in fear of
yeah,
what people might think. I think our biggest problem is that we're afraid of what people are going to think.
yeah,
And and I think that it's extraordinary for you that beautiful, arms around you with all of
yeah,
that support is
yeah,
wonderful. And I think that, sometimes we don't have as much support, but
yeah,
there's always somebody in our life, and we know who that somebody is that we can reach out to when we're struggling and when we have, those types of things happening.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, family, because you had
Yes.
asked about the women in my family. I mean, they were devastated
Yeah.
because he was a son, he was a grandson, he was a brother.
Yeah.
Nobody saw it coming,
No.
right? They were so devastated and they grieved. For
Oh,
sure, they grieved.
yeah. Yeah.
Um, but the day that it happened, I think my sister took the day off work, and because we were in Fraser Valley and she works in Vancouver. So she took
Oh,
the train all the
oh,
way out here, and my mom came out here, and they picked me up. And I remember, like, I think we went shopping. Like we went to buy new sheets for the bed because I was like, I'm not sleeping on these sheets anymore. Like I
oh,
don't remember the day, but
yeah.
I remember driving by Leps Market and looking at the mountains and being like, the world is still turning and
Yes.
this is happening to me,
Yeah.
and we're going to buy sheets. Like it was such a weird day
Yeah.
and I was so numb to everything. I
Yeah.
don't I don't remember what we did, but
Yeah.
I remember that they were there and I
Oh,
remember that they were supportive like crazy. Everyone
yeah.
was supportive.
Yeah.
There was
Yeah.
nobody not supportive.
Come on, Melody, we're going to buy sheets.
Yeah, yeah. And I bought the most bright coral sheets. Like they were
Oh,
so ugly, but they were so like, I mean, you get what you can get in the day, right? And I was like,
yeah,
I don't know who's been in my bed, but I'm not sleeping on these sheets anymore. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh my goodness. Oh. So,
yeah.
so going through all of that and telling your story and sharing and the Facebook group, I had no idea that you had done that. So that's really courageous. And
Yeah.
it's absolutely right. You're absolutely right. We don't have to be, a lot of times we think we have to be perfect. And what people want to see is non-perfect,
Yeah.
because none of us are perfect.
Yeah.
So and to be vulnerable like that is just it's a blessing, because
Yeah.
it allows other people to be vulnerable. So all that said, if somebody's going through some sort of traumatic event in their life, what kind of advice would you give them? What would you suggest that they do other than get a book and start writing?
Yeah. You
Yeah,
know, the one thing I will say is your tribe, the people who come out of the woodwork are not necessarily the people you think will be there beside you. I had very, very close friends at the time who just did not want any part of it. They didn't want to hear about it. They didn't want to, they just kind of like cut, like cut off. And it's not like they were friends with him or anything. Um, they just, it was not, they didn't want any part of it. So I think my advice is the people who come out of the woodwork to support you, just lean into those relationships because there's something there.
yeah,
Like they
yeah,
care about you.
yeah,
They are there for a reason. And you know what? Some of those people came into my life, helped me in that season, and then shortly after we like never spoke again.
yeah,
And that's okay too, right?
yeah.
Like,
Yes,
but
yeah,
find the tribe, find the
yeah,
people in
yeah,
that moment, in that phase of your life that
yeah.
need to be there for you. Because, and
I
it may be lots, it may be one person,
I
right?
think what you said in the beginning about, your really good girlfriends
Yeah.
who just just couldn't help you. You
Yeah.
don't know what's going on in people's lives,
No, no,
right?
no.
And whether that's triggering for them, what
Yeah.
was going on with you, and so they just don't they just I can't mentally themselves, they can't deal with it. And I think that that needs to be said, because there's
Yeah.
a lot of times there's things that happen, and people you think are going to jump to
Yeah.
your rescue are not the ones that are there.
Yeah,
And
no.
sometimes we don't know what to say, and so that blocks us. I remember
Yeah.
years ago, a friend of mine, her husband was killed at work, and she
Mm,
had two little ones. It was very, very traumatic, very sad. And so I went over, I got the phone call, I went over, and I remember I didn't want to go.
yeah.
Like, I knew I had to go, but I was
Yeah.
looking for a way out.
Yeah.
I didn't know I was, but it was my uncomfortableness. And I got into the house, and I didn't know what to say. So I
Yeah.
sat beside her on the couch while she cried, and I just held her hand.
Mm,
What can
yeah.
I possibly say?
And that, but that's everything, right?
That's
That's
everything.
everything.
Yes, I
Yeah.
know. But it's just,
It's hard for some
so
people to,
it's just hard.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's hard to step up when someone you love is in pain and going through
yeah.
whatever they're going through, and when it's triggering for that person, it can make it even worse.
Yeah. And
So
some people are just so not good. They're like, I don't, oh, like when, if, when a
yeah,
family member dies, right?
yes,
And yeah, you think, oh, all these people are going to come to their funeral or their service, and not as many people show up. And you go, why? Well, because death is uncomfortable. Like,
yes,
like trauma and
yes,
tragedy is uncomfortable for people.
yes,
We don't
yes,
know why. And it,
yeah, yeah,
it, but even if you couldn't say anything, you were there. And
yes,
even if those friends didn't reach out all the time, I knew they supported me from afar. I knew they were rooting for me, right?
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
you just,
yeah,
yeah, you never
yeah,
know, right? Life is so unexpected. So,
yes, oh, for sure. So
yeah.
when this all happened with you, what do you think you found in yourself that you didn't realize was there? What did it what Because there's always good that comes out, right? In every
So
bad
much.
situation.
Yeah.
no matter how horrible,
Yeah.
we can usually always find some good. So how did you come out of that? What did you find inside of yourself that you didn't know was there?
I think I knew deep down that these things were there. The independence, I've always been independent, but it was like to a new level, like to the extreme. Like I was in my new house, like rewiring stuff. Like I was like, no, 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 I'll figure out how to do that. I can do that on my own. And so like I started woodworking and I like was running 3 businesses at one time. And like there was just nothing that I could not do, which is that line in the book that my grandma was always singing about, right? That Annie
Yes.
Oakley line.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing I can't do. And so that for sure was one. The confidence, the being able to be on my own and really enjoy my own company, maybe a little bit too much.
Exactly. Yes.
Yes, because being in a relationship now, I'm like, oh, I have to tell you where I'm going. Oh, we have to talk about this. I can't just decide that. Okay.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yes.
for sure those things. And the self-respect, like dating after that, very different.
Yes, of
Very different.
course. Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's I love how you said for sure about this being alone, because I think there's so many people jump from one relationship to another because they're afraid to be alone. And
Yeah.
also, I remember years ago, I think I took a course or something. I don't remember, but you look at your life like a pie, right? And you need to have like your relationships, your marriage, your career, your friends, your craft,
Yeah.
your paddleboarding, like all of those things lined up. So if one of those things gets pulled out, like a relationship,
Yeah.
um, uh, you have those other things.
Yeah.
That I think a lot of people live for a person in relationships. And so if you're living for a person,
Yeah.
when that person is gone, that's like a big, massive empty hole. And
Yeah.
that's really hard to fill.
Yeah.
So self-care, making sure that we have things in our lives that are important to us, and we stay with those things. I it's just so important. I was a single mom for many years, and when you said uh, being alone and being comfortable with yourself, and I love being alone. I mean, I've been remarried now 13 years, and I love my husband. I mean, I
Yes.
adore him, but I also love it when he's not here.
Yes. I
You know?
love him and I love being alone.
Exactly,
They're
exactly.
not, yeah, you
Yeah,
can have both.
exactly. And he loves his time. And I
Yep.
think that that's so important
Yeah.
because if we are filled uh, full of things that we love and all of those things, then that's what we're giving to everybody,
Yeah.
right? We're giving that full life. So I think that's really important for women if they're in relationships or they've gone out of a relationship to look, or even in your life, like what else do you have that you enjoy other than that relationship? Or some people, it's all about their jobs,
Yeah.
and what if that job goes away? Then what
Yeah.
happens,
Then what?
right? So I just think I loved how you said that. Just finding those things to keep your life full.
I know someone that just recently broke up with a longtime partner, and she's having a lot of anxiety about like, oh, this next step, this next phase. And I'm like so freaking excited for her.
Yes.
Because I'm like, you get to discover who you are again. And you're like in your mid-30s. Like you get to be a completely different person if you want. Like
Yeah.
I am not the same person I'm not even the same person I was 2 years ago, but like I'm not the same person I was 7 years ago.
Yes. Yes.
Very, very
Yeah.
different person. I'm
Yeah.
so excited for her. I'm like, just
Yeah.
don't rush in anything. Like just take
Yeah.
your time. Like
Yes.
enjoy
Yeah.
your time, right?
Yeah. I want to tell you about my brother. So my brother, a couple years ago, phoned me up. We don't talk often. I'm the oldest of in child in my family, so I tend to get the phone calls, not
Mhm.
when there's oh my God, my life's falling apart. So my brother calls And he says, my girlfriend of 10 years just left me. I just got fired from my job of 24 years.
Oh
And
my
this is very sad, but and my dog died all within a week.
oh
And
my
I said to
God.
him, congratulations.
Mm.
You hated that job. You
Yeah.
were not happy in that relationship. And I'm sorry about
So
your
sorry about your dog.
your
That's the
little
worst part.
dog. That's really sad. But
Yeah.
on the other two avenues, congratulations.
Yeah.
Your life is you got a new campus, buddy. And so he's got a different job now that he's always wanted to do this. And anyway, now he's doing it. And he's taking his time. He's not, in a full-time relationship or anything. But that's what else can we say?
You know,
Congratulations. Your life
there's
is about to get better.
it's gonna get, yeah. There's two things that I like to, I'm always an optimist. It drives my boyfriend crazy because he's like a realist. He's like, no, but this is gonna happen. I'm like, but this could happen.
Yes.
He's like, but no, it's not. And I'm like, but it could.
Good.
And so I'm just a forever optimist. But I'm also like, and this is hard to do when you're in the thick of it, when trauma is like hitting you right in the thick of it, is to say, what am I learning from this? What is the good coming out of this? And how can I like turn this into something positive? And you can't
Oh,
always do that. And not always, because some trauma is just you're it's just right. There's no good that comes out of it.
right.
But for something like this, for me, right? Like the affair, oh, I learned so much. He did me a favor. I I became a completely different person. I created a life that I loved. I I jumped out of the airplane and built my parachute on the way down. I had no idea what I was doing with my life. And I still don't know what I'm doing with my life, but I was figuring it out on the way, and that was a blessing. And it was hard to see in the first 6 months. But I dived deep into personal development, and I was like, oh, actually, there's a whole other world out here. Like, this is not the end of my
Yes.
life. This is like just a blip in my story.
Yes.
And I really get to do what I want. And
Yes.
that is a blessing. So like
Yes.
even in the craziest of times when, some things, I don't want to say, but some things were happening, and I was like, it would make you crazy. I was like, okay, what am I learning? Oh, I'm learning that I don't want this in the future. I'm learning that I will not stand for this. I'm
Yes.
learning that, oh, I can actually stand up for myself here. Or I'm learning that, you know what, I can just ignore this and move on. Like there were so
Yes.
many things that there's
Wow.
just so many lessons.
Wow.
And I love that you said congratulations, because
What
yeah.
else do you do?
Yeah, I mean, you have no other choice. There's no
That's right. That's
right.
right. You have no other choice. Years ago, I was fired, if you can believe that. I really was. I was fired from a job. And I went home and I cried all weekend long. And I was furious and ashamed and sad and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely best thing that ever happened to me. Best thing that ever happened to me.
Yep.
Like, I can't even tell you about all the good things that came because I was no longer doing something that I really wasn't happy doing.
Yeah.
But you don't realize it when you're in it because
Yep.
we're just in it. And
Yeah.
and I love what you said is that, for people to understand there's a whole other life out there. And I believe it's so funny because one time somebody said to me, well, you're not the same. You've changed. And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
thank goodness, because we're not
Yeah.
meant to be the same. We're not meant to be the same person. We're
Yeah.
meant to change and evolve and grow and all of those kinds of things. And if you look back over your life and you go, I'm exactly the same as I was when I was, and I'm talking mentally and that
Yeah.
kind of thing, with personal growth, then yeah, that's good. That's
Yeah.
good to be in the same place. We're
Yeah.
meant to grow and
Yeah.
evolve. And I love knowing that I don't know everything.
Yes.
Like there's so many things I don't know. I can't,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. It's just the world is just full. And I
There's so much. There's so
yeah,
much. And that's like the biggest compliment, to say that you're not the same person.
yeah,
Thank you.
yes, 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 yeah.
But
It's
yeah, the world is, there's so much out there that we can,
yeah, yeah. And it's
yeah,
hard when you're in it
yeah,
to see that, you know, uh, it takes some time. And so it's important for people to realize that, I didn't get over it right away. It took me quite a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you didn't get over it right away.
No,
But to allow yourself to go through that and
you
allow
have to sit
yourself
with
to,
it.
yes,
You
yes,
have to, really do need to feel those emotions. If you push them away,
yeah,
speaking from experience, if you keep pushing them, they're not going anywhere. They're just going to bubble back up. They're trying to
yes,
get back up and you keep pushing them down and then they're going to explode.
yeah,
Like, just take the time to sit and cry for a weekend, cry
yeah,
for a month, cry for 2 months,
yeah, yeah, whatever
right?
whatever it takes.
Get it
Yeah.
all out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then once you start to get over the immediate shock and everything of whatever's happened, then your brain starts to clear and it's like,
Mm,
oh, and you start to see these little things. So
yeah.
I hope that anybody who was listening today learns from your story.
I hope so
I
too.
think it's just so important. And I love how you learned from somebody else's story.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
So
still
thank,
have that book on my shelf.
oh,
Like,
I
yeah.
just think it's beautiful. That's what it's all about
Yeah.
is, we're in the world with other people that are, some are doing better than us, some are doing worse. And hopefully we can be that shining light to help people to proceed in their lives as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've always said, like, if putting my story on the line, putting myself out there, if it helps just one person, then it was worth it. So
Yeah,
it
for
was.
sure. So in closing, Melody, what would you like to say to our audience? What's a few words of wisdom you'd like to pass along while you got the chance?
Gosh, I feel like I've given a lot in the last
Yeah.
half hour. I feel like there's never like one thing. I think just know your worth and always remember that, like, at the end of the day, like, you are, how do I want to say this? Like, if everything in the world was gone and it's just you, you're left with you. So create a life and create the person that you want to be. Be that person. Just start being that person now. And do the things that light you up. And don't take crap from anyone. That's a hard one for me to do.
Yes.
But don't, like, don't
Oh, absolutely.
just yeah, do what makes you happy and be who you want to be. And if something in your life is not making you happy right now, then it's okay to go change it. That's, I don't know.
That's no, you're going to listen back and you're going to go, wow, where did that come from?
Oh, I'm
That's
so smart.
beautiful. No, yeah, you better write that down. That's,
I should
it's
somewhere.
beautiful. It's beautiful. And I think that that's if you can, if we can give one lesson to anybody who has listened or watched this, that would be the one to learn to care for yourself and fill up your life
Yeah.
so that you can care for you. I had a dream once. I'm not going to go into the whole dream, but I said in my dream, I don't know my purpose. And I was told, you are your purpose.
Oh,
Yes, that's what I was
oof,
told. And so I
that's
believe it.
exactly it.
We are planted here for us. Yes, we also are here to, help others, care for our children, our spouses, and share, the world. But we are here for us. We are our own purpose. Everything else is a passion. And
Yeah.
so I love what you said because that's the way it goes. If
Yeah.
you do everything that Melody just said, you're fulfilling your purpose. Yeah. So
My
thank you. Oh, no, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say my dad, when I quit teaching, I was worried he was gonna be like, "What are you doing?" Because my whole life he had said, "Go get a job, get a good job, go, yeah, be a teacher, you got summers off, retire, blah 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 blah." The whole thing. And so I was like, I'm quitting teaching and I think it took my family a few months to
Yeah.
kind of sit with it and go, okay.
Yeah.
But I think the next year he said to someone, you know what? Melody didn't like her life and she went and changed it. And I'm proud of her for
Oh.
that. And so, and that's kind of like my,
Oh.
yeah, one of the things I'm like, nope, I don't like that. I'm going to go do something different.
Oh
I'm going
my
to change
goodness. Okay. All right. We're gonna no crying, Julie. That's beautiful. What a
Yeah.
beautiful thing for your father to say.
Yeah, it was great. It was great.
Beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Melody, for being here. Now, If anybody wants to reach out to Melodie, I will have some information about how you can do that in the details section. I'm also going to have a link to her story. So if you want to read her story in the book, you can go ahead and do that. And yeah, just I take care of yourselves, everybody. And
Mm,
yeah, yeah, just
yeah,
listen back at this again and make notes and start doing those things. Okay.
yeah.
Take care, everybody. Bye.